Welcome to Deep Thought, folks. I'm the Crazy Even, and today we're going to be going through Super Mario Land. And with me here is the lovable Flameclaw.
Lovable, that's a new one on me, but yep, I'm here. And I'm handling the gameplay here because I love Super Mario Land so much.
Yeah, I read the description of the video that where the gameplay is from, and in it I saw an interesting factoid that this is apparently your favorite Mario game.
It's my favourite of the platformers, yeah. Like, I'll say this game right off the bat, and you can see this just from what we're watching in this first level. A lot of people see this game as like the weird one from Mario, and like there is a lot of justification for that, not just from art style, but also things like the control and that. And I think it's one of these deals where you'll either really like this or you'll really like the other Mario games. And like there's going to be some crossover, but for the most part, it seems to reach a different kind of group of people. I notice a lot of people who like are more hardcore fans of the main Mario series tend to think of this one as it's not as great. To me, I love this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really knocking against the game. It's a good game. I like it. It's not my favorite Mario game, obviously, but I would be hard pressed to call it bad. Perhaps a bit glitchy, archaic in some ways as well. But like one of the biggest reasons that Super Mario Land is just such a weird game is that, well, it was, I believe, the first Mario game, I should say, to be developed without Shigeru Miyamoto's involvement, like any involvement whatsoever.
Yeah, this was actually produced or led, I'm not sure exactly what, but like it was mainly oversaw by Gunpei Yokoi, who was the guy who designed both the Game Boy and I believe prior to that the Game & Watch. Not entirely sure about the Game & Watch, but I know he's definitely like the designer of the Game Boy. And this was actually a launch game for the Game Boy as well. And yeah, I think that's why it did so well, because I believe it was this and Tetris were the only games that came out at launch for the Game Boy. So, you know, you got your Tetris, which is one of the other greatest games of all time, just saying. And you got a pretty solid Mario platformer to go with it. This, when I say it's really successful, this I mean sold about 18 million copies successful. So, huge.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And that guy's down, just like that.
Yeah, this does. One of the few things this actually carries over from, like, say, Super Mario Bros. Is that the bosses, you can cheese them just by jumping over them.
Yeah, his name is King Totomesu, and as we're going to see throughout this playthrough, there are a lot of really weird names.
Yes, that's another one of the things that kind of leads to people seeing it as an outlier and that. And the names we have, we should say that the only time these names are brought up are in instruction manuals. And for the instruction manual, it was quite clearly a rush job. Like, they translated the names, like, literally, as opposed to the other games where they came up with new names for them for the English releases. And I think some of them got renamed in the Virtual Console instruction manual releases. Like, for example, I forget exactly what the Goomba equivalents of in this game are, but they've got some long, hard to pronounce Japanese name in the original manual.
I think the name is Chibibo?
Something like that. Yeah. In the Virtual Console re-release, they changed the name of those to Goombos. And the ones that are like basically bullet bills that we'll see in some later levels, they changed them to Bullet Biff. So it kind of just takes into account the fact that they're sort of like it, but different.
Yeah, I mean, they essentially are the same thing. They have the same functions, so there's not too much of a difference.
Yeah, the one that are most distinct, though, are the Koopa equivalents. Because as opposed to the NES games where you bounce on their backs and then it crushes them down to a shell and then you can kick the shell, in this one they turn into an explosive. And if you're not used to this game, I can see a lot of people might just think, okay, what do I do? Oh shit, I've been blown up. And then we just saw them there.
So many wasted Koopas. Who knows what kind of potential they could have had if they just weren't designed in that the capability.
Yeah, well, that goes for a lot of the general throwaway enemies you see in platforms, though, doesn't it? Like, I think the most depressing one has got to be fucking Bullet Bills. Like, his entire lifespan. Like, just think about this. You're a Bullet Bill. You've been taken on for this new job from Bowser. Like, he's just told you what you're gonna do, and your job is to sit in this cannon, and when Mario comes, you're going to shoot forward, and keep going forward, and keep going forward, until you die. That's morbid.
Yeah, when you start to think about the lives of these enemies, you really, really get sad.
Like, I remember a little while ago I was looking into stuff for the NES one, and there was a plot in that game, that another one that a lot of people don't know about, because like it was exclusive to the instruction manuals. But the plot of that was apparently that Bowser had turned all the residents of the Mushroom Kingdom into the blocks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot more well-known than the ones in here.
Oh, yeah. This game, I think a lot of people just didn't bother rating it because it's a Game Boy game and, you know. But, like, you think of that in terms of the NES ones and just, like, yeah, Mario... Is Mario even the good guy?
Who knows?
And I know I am getting into game theory is Mario evil sort of territory here, but, you know.
This is well, contrary to the platformer levels that we've seen previously, this is just kind of like your standard side-scrolling shoot-'em-up, and it's a nice change of pace, I will give it that, but, I mean, it's nothing too special, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is quite radically different from the main gameplay, but honestly, it's inoffensive. I think it's quite a bit of fun. It is very basic as a side-scroller shooter. Like, this ain't no Gradius, this ain't no Zero Wing, anything like that. But, you know, as a slight little distraction, keeping the game fresh, you know, I can take it.
Music's pretty good as well. I like this song.
I love this entire soundtrack, like, so much. I think part of this is... This a game I've played so many times, it's kind of ingrained in my mind at this time. But yeah, it's just such a charming little soundtrack.
Here we have another boss. I believe his name is Dragonzamazu? Oh my god.
It's a fucking Kingdra. It is, like...
What?
Kingdra from Pokemon. That's what it reminds me of. I just think back to the kind of, you know, toward the end of Gen 2, and Claire's one is really irritating, but that's my unrelated rambling to another game.
Yeah, I suppose so. He's... or it's one of the only bosses that actually manages to put up some sort of a fight.
Well, yeah. I will say there's an exception. The final boss, he's got a little bit more meat to it, but we'll see him in probably about 10 minutes because of how short this game is.
Oh yeah, super, super short. Although, if you suck at this game, because I'm pretty sure the game like kicks you back to the very beginning if you lose all your lives, that could like lead into like a very extended game time. And to be honest, before we did this playthrough, I had never beaten Super Mario Land. I owned it for the original Game Boy, but I was just never bothered to beat it. Like, the farthest I'd got was I believe the first or second level of the fourth world.
Right, yeah, because this game, like you say, it does kick you back to the start, but this game is also quite generous with lives as well. So,
oh yeah,
like it's not much of a big problem. But it's interesting you say about how you hadn't played this one before, but like I'm also the other way around. Like, because we're going to be covering both this and Land 2 in the coming future, I actually played through Land 2 for the first time, and I'll reserve my thoughts on that for when we get to that game. But yeah, I think part of the reason why I've come to prefer this is familiarity.
Yeah. I suppose that's fair.
Anyway, I'm not sure if this is a placebo or not, but it feels like the game chugs a bit during these rock sections, but I'm not sure whether that's just because the animation's a bit jank.
Yeah, I believe this was made on a 1 megabyte cartridge, which I suppose was kind of the norm for this time, especially for the launch of the Game Boy. So they probably haven't like fixed a lot of the kinks just yet. And if you look up like speedruns for this game, you can just see just how glitchy it is. Like, I believe in the submarine level, you can just kind of like glitch your way in like in a certain position, and you just automatically beat the level. It's one of those kind of games.
Yeah, like some of them can be fascinating to watch, just seeing people completely break games apart. But as you were saying, like, as an early Game Boy game, that's where a lot of the little quirks about this game come from as well. Like the art style, a lot of people would see this and just their initial observation is this looks very simple. And that's a Game Boy thing, because the Game Boy only actually had support, at least these early games, for the 4 different shades of grey. And so, you got to get a bit creative with this. Like, you've either got light grey, dark grey, white or black. And bearing that in mind, they actually did alright with this. They naturally did much better in Land 2 when it comes to the visuals. But yeah, I talk about that as we're over probably the ugliest part of the game, which is the waterfalls, but still.
Yeah. I gotta say, for like a launch Game Boy game, the art style, well, I mean, technicalities haven't held up incredibly well, but like, the art style is certainly unique. I believe I read somewhere it was like inspired from like line art of sorts, as you can kind of like saw on the previous level with like the Easter Island heads, like very, very simplistic. Like someone could probably just like scoff that off and say, "Oh, it doesn't look good at all. I don't know what the hell you're talking about." And who knows? They're probably right, but I think it looks pretty good.
It's making the best of a bad situation, really.
Yeah,
that's the way I kind of see it. One thing that is a bit of a point of contention for some people that I actually quite like that Mario has a small sprite in this, because Mario is actually only 12 pixels tall here. But that's done in a way that it gives you more of the screen space to move around in. And that's obviously a decision they've had to make in terms of just giving you more space for actual level. It's one of these things that, like, they could have gone the other way. They could have made Mario bigger and just made the level smaller. But then you get to situations like, say, Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge and the other Mega Man handheld games where you haven't really got as much space and the level screens become very compact and you can't really move as fluidly as you might like to.
Yeah, there was yet another like super piss easy boss. He has my favorite name like in the entire game.
Hi-yoi-hoi.
Yes. I didn't know if I was going to pronounce that incorrectly or not, so I hesitated. But thankfully, I think you did. Regardless, it's a great name. I love it.
Yeah. This is the equivalent of the princesses in another castle thing. Princess Daisy turns out to be a fake in the like fake out worlds, and that it just turns back into its enemy form.
Yeah, Princess Daisy from Sarasaland. I think that's the name. I'm probably wrong.
Sarasaland.
Okay. They say like there are like a lot of double naming conventions, like alliterations and. No, not really alliterations. Well, rhyming, I guess, but yeah. Weird names. Very weird names.
Yeah. Princess Daisy, I think at this point she was just being used as an XP for the then Princess Toadstool, who would, evolve into the design of Princess Peach. Daisy does actually show up quite a lot during the series, particularly like in the spin-offs mainly. She's in a lot of the Mario Karts, she's in the sports games and that. She's also one of the main characters in the Super Mario Bros. Film, which is wonderful. I love that film. I have no shame in saying that.
Yeah, I saw it once when I was a kid. I liked it, but in retrospect, it probably wasn't that great. But I mean, I'm not going to shame you for liking it.
Oh, it's terrible. I won't deny that, but I love it.
Yeah, and that's just fine. But yeah, with like a lot of conventions you see in this game with like the different princess, kind of similar enemies, but not really. And well, just this, just like something so unconventional in like any other Mario games. Like it's, yeah. I will certainly praise it for being unique, but I like sometimes it just gets a bit too weird for me. But I think like my biggest problem with the game overall is that it doesn't have quite enough for me to like sink my teeth into.
That's just because it is a short game. I do get you there. I think for me, I like these little short games, like the little short side scrollers and that, as this is the sort of thing that if I just want to chill out, play something that's relatively easy just for a little while and just, just chill out kind of game, I like this for it is. I can see why you would want a little bit more, and that's why I can see why a lot of people tend to prefer the sequel a bit more, because, you know, that's a bit longer, it's got more levels and whatnot.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I think I might just by a smidge prefer this to the original Super Mario Bros. Because, I mean, the original Super Mario Bros. Is a lot tighter. It's better designed, but it gets kind of repetitive. Like if you're going for like all the worlds and stuff, and even with like the warp pipes and stuff, it's still kind of like eh. And like with this, however, it's like its structure. It's like you'll see everything in the game with one playthrough. So I mean, while it doesn't have a whole lot to offer, like what it does offer is pretty good. Even if, in my opinion, I wish there was more.
Yeah, I think what you kind of see in there is that this has more distinct theming than Super Mario Bros. Because Super Mario Bros., it's a very basic by-the-numbers platformer. You have these generic worlds, like the Mushroom Kingdom is the most generic of generic locations. Whereas this game, you've got, like, granted very loosely based on real-life locations, but it's still there. There's still enough to separate them from one another. It's not just, here's the blue background, here's the black background. You know, it feels like they're... And maybe that is just a design thing, like they realise they haven't got the colour available to them, so instead they're just spending more time working on the actual pixel art, which I think works for the better, but, you know, your mileage may vary there. But still, I just think it's because it's got them thematics, it just... Like, it just relates better on a placebo, like, way of seeing things, I guess.
It's certainly interesting to like imagine like what the design process for games like these with like such high limitations, like what the design process was in creating them, like especially with the art style and the graphics, as we've kind of noticed before, like low memory and only 4 colors, all gray.
Yeah.
So yeah, I find that quite fascinating.
I have read somewhere, and I can't verify this, but I believe this was a game that wasn't originally intended as a Mario game. I think this was meant to be like a new IP or something, and like they just retrofitted it with Mario later on in development.
I think I saw something, they were like creating some sort of demo that it would eventually evolve into this game. I don't think it was like a Super Mario Bros. 2 situation, which... Like, that's exactly what you just described there. But, I mean, I could be wrong. It's certainly interesting if that was the case, but I don't know.
We're in a plane. Who cares?
Yeah, we're in a plane. Woo! I like this a bit more than the submarine one because, I mean, well, he's in a plane. He's got a little helmet on. He's still adorable.
And you can get fisted there.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's the cloud.
Yeah, or as it goes by its other name, Bia-Katan. What?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like, contrary to the other bosses, he puts up a lot more of a fight, even though he's just a cloud with eyes.
Pretty much, yeah. But here is the big bad of Super Mario Land. This is Tatanga, and he's probably the closest thing you get to a challenge in this game, really. Because this is, like, granted it's not as in-depth as a lot of, like, shooters and whatnot, but this is basically baby's first bullet hell, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and he goes down just like that, though, so it really doesn't matter in the end.
Well, that was because I, you know, did a few practice attempts before, like, doing it. He can be quite challenging in the first playthrough.
Yeah. Hey, we saved Daisy. Also, we got 69 coins at the very end.
Yes, I love being 12. Nice. Now, one thing which I'm not going to be showing off here is if you just like let the credits roll and then, you know, go back through, you get like a hard mode equivalent, which it's the same game again, just, you know, there's a few more enemies and whatnot. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to Super Mario Land.
Yeah. So, do you want to like sum up your final thoughts first, or do you want me to?
I will say Super Mario Land, it's bizarre, it's very wacky and out there, and I absolutely love it. It's a game that I've played a lot since my childhood. It's a game that I've kind of got memorized. It's a game that I just have like a lot of personal connection to. I love the charm of it, and on the whole, it's just a really solid, fun game.
Yeah, I pretty much stated like everything I've needed to say like about my thoughts about this game in the past 20 minutes or so. But I mean, again, it's not bad. Like, far from it. Even if it's kind of like one of the first Game Boy games, it's kind of primitive and kind of the design isn't up to the standards of other Mario games. But it's still pretty good. It's enjoyable, especially in its own right. I really do kind of like how unique it is, and even if I wish there was just like more to kind of like, again, sink my teeth into. Like, again, like for what they were presented with and the limitations and stuff, like the graphics look pretty good, and the soundtrack, of course, is absolutely wonderful, like endlessly charming and memorable. And yeah, that is pretty much it for Super Mario Land. We'll catch you guys next time when Mario has to go get his 6 golden coins in Super Mario Land 2. Thank you for watching, and as always, we'll see you later.